In this video, I will show you how to replace the front struts on your vehicle. I've got a 2005 Hyundai Elantra that I plan on using to demonstrate this task. This strut here is going to be replaced. To kind of give you an overview of this process, of this picture, I'm looking at the manual here to show you. This is the strut that we are looking to replace. This strut is basically held in by these three bolts on top. This is the front strut upper mounting nuts. Basically, they need to be torqued to 45 to 60 pound-feet at the end. And it is being held in by the front strut lower mounting bolts, these two bolts right here, and those are to be tightened to 130 to 150 pound-feet. To give you a better picture of this, I'm going to flip the page here and show you this whole assembly. Once we remove these three bolts, these three nuts and the two bolts through here, this strut assembly will be completely free. Once we do that, we need to then remove this strut unit only from the rest of the assembly. And in order to do that, we're going to have to use a tool like this that we can get from AutoZone, that we buy. We got 90 days to return it. Basically, it's their loaner program. Get this from AutoZone. You bring this in here, you clamp it on the spring on one side, and then the opposite side you tighten the clamps down until these coils are compressed. And the reason why you're doing this is you want to release the tension that it has on the spring upper seat and the spring lower seat. This will allow you to be able to remove the center nut. Once you are able to remove that center nut, then you will pull out the various parts that go along this coil spring. Once you've done that, this unit will fall out and you are ready to go ahead and replace this. And then you basically reinstall this whole assembly back together in reverse order. You take the new strut, put the lower pad in, drop the compressed spring in there, install the rubber mount, the strut dust cover, the upper seat. You install this plate back in, and then you install this front strut self-locking nut back on, which is torqued to 50 to 70 pounds per feet. The thing to keep in mind is this upper portion has two flat spots, which is what's going to help you hold it in place while you tighten the nut. Once you've got that assembly done, you basically will go back to this picture here to demonstrate. You will put this back from underneath the fender body, reinstall those three nuts in there loosely while you get this in place so that you're able to mount the strut into the knuckle assembly. Reinstall those two nuts, and once you've torqued those, go ahead and torque those upper bolts as well. And then that's it. Pretty much you're done. So I just wanted to give you this quick overview before we go ahead and start with the whole process. Before you begin anything, you want to make sure that you've got the car jacked up securely. Once you've got the car jacked up, you want to install the stands underneath in a safe location, like I've done. I basically use the main bar that goes from the front to the end. Once that you've got the stand underneath, you want to release the pressure on the jack so that you don't end up screwing your jack up down the road. Get some load on there, and then remove the tires of your car. And for this particular car, in order to not mess up the alignment, we're going to go ahead and remove the lower knuckle bolt. Once I remove that, I'm going to hammer the lower control arm until this bolt, the lower control arm releases itself from the lower knuckle. Once that's done, once I've accomplished this, this whole assembly will then be loose, and from there I'm going to go ahead and mark my bolt on this side here with nail polish, or you can use whiteout, something like that, so that actually this is the nut side. I should probably go into the nut. Here I'm going to mark this so that at the end location, at the end when I'm reinstalling everything, I'm going to make sure that I have the upper bolt where it's supposed to be and I've got the lower bolt where it's supposed to be. The reason why I'm saying this is because here this seems like I've got the original bolts in here, but however what happens is sometimes down the road when you need front end alignment, you may end up getting a cam bolt installed, and I can show you on the passenger side. I've got a big bolt and I've got a small bolt right here. So this is a clear indication that there's a cam bolt in here, and this cam has been put in a certain direction for me to have proper alignment, and so it's very critical that I reinstall this cam bolt back in its original location. Otherwise my alignment is going to be off. Either way, at the end of this whole process, I'm going to be getting some new tires, and then I'm going to be getting a wheel alignment done, and that's something that should be checked afterwards because you don't want to mess up your tires. So anyhow, going back, my goal is to remove the lower control arm bolt first. Then I'm going to unbolt this arm here, loosen these two bolts up, remove this so that the lower control arm can be completely free. Once I do that, then this whole assembly is free to move in any which way. What's going to happen is I may end up having to open this bolt up so that my my front axle can move out, but we'll see how far I need to go to do this. Anyhow, so I'm going to go ahead and get started here. Okay, so I've got this started. I've gone ahead and marked the bolts. I've put a dot in the center on the top one, so I know that that's going to be the top bolt. The lower one is not going to have anything. I've gone ahead and undid this, I think it was 12mm bolt, which frees the line. I've gone ahead and unbolted the link between the lower control arm. That's a 14mm bolt, so I'm just going to go ahead and reinstall the nut on it so I don't end up losing parts. You want to make sure you store this stuff in a place where you can find it. I've gone ahead and loosened this this bolt, these 3 bolts. I've also gone ahead and rigged this up so I can show you. I'm using a 19mm wrench. I'm going to go ahead and stick this in here to get the extra leverage that I need, and then I'm going to go ahead and remove this arm. Once I get this bolt off, I will show you how to remove the lower control arm. The next thing we're going to do is then open up this bolt here for the axle. And the reason why I'm doing this here again is so that I don't mess up the alignment. They suggest that you remove this control arm, and by removing this, I'm going to need a special tool to pop it first of all, which is going to end up messing up my alignment. I don't want to do that. So what I'm just simply going to go ahead and do is remove this pin, remove this nut, and then this whole thing will slide out, and the front axle will drop out of the back, and that's significantly easier to do than to remove this. Once I'm able to do this, then I can open up these bolts, and then this control arm can move out of its way, and then I can simply go ahead and drop the strut down. So let me get started on removing the lower control arm bolt. So basically, I'm going to go ahead and hammer this right here. Then you do the other side. From right here. At some point, since what I did last time I worked on my front drive, you can see this thing pops out, and my whole thing is ready to move. So after breaking the lower control arm free, I've gone ahead and removed the 32mm nut and washer. Basically, you may need someone to sit on the inside, press the brake so that the rotor won't turn. I used an air gun to do mine, or you can use a longer ratchet with a longer extension on it, or you add a pipe to it. I've gone ahead and broken that out. Now with that loose, this thing is free to move. I have popped the drive axle through here. The thing you want to make sure is once you've got the lower control arm broken loose, you don't, with this thing locked in still, you do not want to pull this out, because what's going to happen is it's going to pull your drive axle from the transmission, but it's not going to do it from there. What's going to happen is there's a CV joint in this, concealed in the rubber seal here, that the axle will pull out of, and then it's going to be pretty tricky getting it back in there. So before you go ahead and pull this whole assembly forward from the lower control arm, what you want to make sure you do is you break the bolt, and you remove the nut, and you push the axle through, basically with your thumb. You just push it and pull forward, and your axle will come out without any effort. So now that I've done this, I am now going to go ahead and break these two bolts loose, and then I'm going to go ahead and remove them. Once I've removed this, and then we'll move to the top. Okay, so now what I've gone ahead, I've got this hanging here. I just basically rigged it up with some bungee cords up to the hood so that this thing doesn't fall, because it's free to move now, as you can see. The axle has come out. The axle is sitting in here. The axle has not pulled out of there. This is now completely free. I've got a couple of the bolts removed. I got one more nut left. Once I remove that bolt, this nut right here, one nut here, this assembly should fall right out. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove that bolt, and then I'll show you how this thing will fall down. Alright, so go ahead and remove that nut for me. And just like that, this whole assembly comes right out. And here we've got ourselves the front strut assembly. So I'm going to go ahead and rig up the spring compressors. So I'm going to get this thing compressed down. Once I've got that compressed, I'll show you the setup, and we'll be on our way. Okay, I've got the coil spring compressing kit on. You want to get it on at 180 degrees from one another. This end here, the top end, where the head is, it is not threaded. This is the only portion that's threaded. What you do is you get this in, make sure you drop in the pins. That's going to be holding the coil. It's going to be keeping it from moving it anywhere. And then you just simply start tightening here a little bit, then tighten on this side. This side here I'm going to be able to use the my gun, my air tool, but here I'm going to have to do it with hand because it's a little tight fit. In hindsight, if I had put this end over here, I may have been able to do it, but anyways, I'm going to give it a shot and see how it goes. So let me get this thing compressed in, and then I'll give you a view of what it looks like at that point. Okay, so I've got the springs compressed, and as you can see they're completely loose now. I went ahead and removed the bolt from the top. This thing comes out, so there's a bearing which allows the strut to move around when we turn the tires. The top plate comes off. It basically has a washer that's built in, I guess. There's the rubber seal, the rubber gasket or padding actually, that the coil spring is going to set back in. So we'll set that up when we pull it out. So I'm just going to go ahead and pull this assembly out for you to be able to see. So there's that. Before we put this on, we're going to go ahead and clean this up a little bit. There's some dirt and grime that's been in there for a while. And I take off the rubber, the cover, the shield, and this is the one that, in case you bottom out the shock, this is what prevents it from going all the way down. So this basically absorbs the impact at that point. And here we go. Here we have the strut pulled out. So compressing this took maybe like 5 minutes. One side I did with the air gun, the other side with the hand. It was extremely simple and fast. So now I just need to be able to get the new shock and put that in. Alright, the new strut. This is the new strut on that you see in front of you. It's the OE Spectrum. It's by Monroe. Comes with new center bolt for the top, which we'll use. This is the 71405, which is for the driver side front. So we're just going to go ahead. I've removed the rubber gasket. I've placed it on here. So now we're just going to go ahead and install everything literally back in reverse order. So let me do that let me do this, and then I'll show you what it looks like assembled. Okay, so here it is. I've got the strut in. All we now need to do is get this thing mounted back into the body, and we're good to go. Now I've got the strut installed up on top. I've got the 4 bolts snugged, hand tightened. What I had and did is installed the 2 bolts that go into the upper knuckle. Once I've done that, I've gone ahead and installed my axle into here. I'm just going to push in. Okay, I guess I'm going to have to free up my 2 hands here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it here. I've got the axle pushed in. The next act would be to get the lower control arm bolt to go through the bottom, which I think is going to be pretty straightforward here. Right. I'm going to pause here, use my 2 hands, and get that in here. I've got the car put back together. The only thing I've got missing here is the cotter pin, which I broke while I was removing, so I've got to get a new one and install this in here. I've got my bolts installed and torqued. I've got these bolts installed and torqued, and then I've got my lower control arm bolt in there and torqued as well. I've gone ahead and torqued the bolt up here and also the center bolt after getting these things tightened up, and we're good to go. One thing though, in hindsight, which I would suggest, kind of learn the hard way. Actually, for me, it wasn't a bad thing because I had these two were my standard bolts, so that shouldn't throw my alignment off at all. But however, when we do come to the other side, you will notice that I marked that back to the shock at this point. What I need to do is I need to bring this out horizontally and mark it off on the control arm. The reason why that needs to be done is because this is part of the assembly of the strut, and so I will lose those marks. So anyhow, I've got to get this thing marked up again. So I'm just going to mark horizontally. I'm going to come across and then or come down at an angle or something and mark the control arm. So this way I have some type of a mark to reference when I put the new strut in. That's about it. The other thing to note is that these bolts should be replaced if you see that the threads are getting bad. Actually, they want you to replace these bolts every single time the knuckle has been opened, because it's a very critical component of your vehicle. Because if that bolt breaks or shears off, you could have a catastrophic accident. So one thing that I am going to go ahead and do is in the process of tightening up the other side, I did end up stripping the bolt, which is probably a good reminder for myself. I'll show you those. And so what you need to do is get yourself a brand new bolt. So right there, it's stripped. So a reminder to myself and to everyone out there, when you are doing this major job, might as well spend that extra money and get yourself a new pair of bolts for your knuckle. So that's about it. Pretty much we've got the driver's side replaced, and I'm now going to go ahead and do the passenger side, and we're good to go from there. I hope that this video has served to help you understand what it takes to basically replace the strut, which is not very difficult at all. It took me more time to make this video than it will take me when I do the passenger side. So I hope you guys will enjoy doing it as much as I enjoy doing my vehicle here, and good luck. If you have any questions, please post them below and I will make every effort to answer them in a timely fashion. Well, thank you for watching, and please subscribe or give me thumbs up or whatever. Ask questions. Thank you. Bye bye for now.